Rebecca, we got 3 of the 5 members. Do you want to wait a couple more minutes before we go over this?
Well, we're really short on time. I know because we have the hearing at 6. So I think let's go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Okay.
We'll just get started with the work session since we don't have a lot of time. I know we have Commissioner Wilson, Commissioner Ofis, myself, and then it looks like several members of city staff and HCTV.
Yeah.
For the person who is calling in, we just see your phone number. And I don't know if you heard Sharon, but if you would be willing to identify yourself, you are on mute currently. We would certainly appreciate that. I believe you can press *6 to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, this is Nick Four. I'm with Cross Development. I'm representing the Caliber project.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Just so you're aware, we are starting with a half-hour work session, and the hearings will start at 6.
Okay, do you need me involved in this part?
Nope, the work session is totally separate, and we'll be talking about recreational marijuana today. So it is really your call. It's open to the public if you're interested.
Okay, yeah, I'll just sit on mute. I appreciate it.
All right, great. And it looks like Commissioner Sorensen has joined us as well. So I think with that, Sharon, we'll turn it over to staff to discussion topics for the work session.
All right, Michael.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, commissioners. I'm Michael Alvarez. I'm a planner here with the Community Development Department. And let me just bring this up. All right. How's that for everybody? So tonight we'll be talking about House Bill 701 and possibly zoning for marijuana. Like I said, I am Michael Alvarez with the Community Development Department. This talk is going to be broken down into more or less 3 parts. The current state of how we're regulating medical marijuana in Helena, the options that the city of Helena will have in regulating marijuana under HB 701, and then really questions and sort of primarily asking the zoning commission or putting it in your head to think about what information will you need from city staff to help you along in thinking about regulating marijuana. So existing local authority to regulate marijuana, medical marijuana providers, dispensaries, and testing labs all must obtain licenses from DPHHS, and DPHHS may deny the application if the proposed premises is not approved by local building, health, or fire officials. The proposed premises is within 500 feet of and on the same street as a place of worship or a school. That can't be reduced, and that is not changing under HB 701. Or if a local government has adopted an ordinance or resolution prohibiting the operation of dispensaries or storefront businesses as allowed under MCA 50-46-328, which specifically states a local government may regulate a provider that operates within the local government's jurisdictional area. And regulations may include things like inspections, etc. And a local government may adopt an ordinance or resolution prohibiting providers from operating dispensaries or as storefront businesses. So what this looks like is how we've handled it in relation to zoning has primarily been to break it into 2 uses: medical marijuana grow operations and medical marijuana dispensaries. Medical marijuana grow operations are handled under our agricultural use category. They're heavily regulated and are only allowed by CUP and CLMs, commercial light manufacturing and manufacturing industrial zones. And medical marijuana dispensaries are permitted in all of our commercial zones, but not really our hybrid ones. So it's not allowed in R4, RO, or the transitional residential zoning districts. I do want to note that under MCA section 1612-102, and I'll probably reiterate this a couple of times, I don't know that it matters to how we zone it or how we categorize it, but under the state legislation, marijuana is not considered an agricultural product. And just a further note, basically medical marijuana dispensaries have been handled as a sales category. So just a quick overview of definitions in 1612-102. So adult use dispensary is a licensed premises for which a person licensed by DOR. And a quick addendum here, licensing is moving from DPHHS to the Department of Revenue. So it's no longer with Health and Human Services. Licensed premises for which a person licensed by DOR may obtain marijuana from licensed cultivator, manufacturer, dispensary, or other licensee approved by DOR, and sell marijuana to registered card holders or adults that are 21 years of age or older, or both. Marijuana is, of course, all plant material from the genus cannabis containing THC or seeds capable of germination, not including hemp. And marijuana product is a product that contains marijuana is intended for use by a consumer by means other than smoking, includes but not limited to edible products, ointments, tinctures, marijuana concentrates. And again, marijuana and marijuana products not considered agricultural. So to dive into House Bill 701 a little bit as it pertains to zoning potentially, HB 701 says the following: medical marijuana providers licensed or had applied as of November 3rd, 2020 can apply to get a new recreational medical marijuana combined license under HB 701 I-190 framework beginning January 1st, 2022. So everyone else must wait to apply for the licensing beginning July 1st, 2023. And this is intended to give existing medical providers a year and a half to establish themselves as recreational providers. So only those who are licensed before November of last year can get a recreational marijuana license starting January 1st. All medical marijuana providers licensed as of December 31st of this year may continue to operate as medical marijuana providers under all existing state and local laws until their permit is up. And then at that time, they may apply under the new framework or their license will expire. So HB 701 is also going to create a number of license categories, and they cover categories like cultivation, manufacturing, dispensing, testing, and transporting of marijuana. So just to talk about these a little bit, because these are sort of the ones that are going to be considered here. So marijuana cultivator is licensed per canopy tier license system, and they range pretty wildly. So a tier 1 micro producer is just 100 square foot facility, and a tier 12 is a 50,000 square foot facility. These facilities are necessarily indoors. They must be cultivated indoors, with exception for marijuana cultivators who were cultivating outdoor prior to November 3rd, 2020. And I do not believe Helena has any outdoor cultivators operating in the city. So a marijuana manufacturer, these are facilities creating those marijuana products. Activities could include the extraction of cannabinoids, terpenes, and other compounds from cannabis. There may be the use of caustic chemicals. They may create foul odors, and flammable and or combustible materials may be involved in some of the processes. Medical marijuana dispensary, this is what we already have in town. So licensee for adult use may operate a shared location with medical marijuana dispensary if both are owned by the same person. And adult use dispensary can sell marijuana products, marijuana plants to consumers and registered card holders. An adult use dispensary, anyone 21 years 21 years old and older may purchase within limits, and all current medical marijuana dispensaries may apply for an adult use dispensary license following the previously mentioned date restrictions. Testing labs, what a testing lab is, they're facilities that independently verify THC levels in marijuana and marijuana products. A marijuana transporter facility is allowed to contract with multiple marijuana businesses. They may store marijuana for a period of time. And HB 701 says that they're only allowed in approved counties and with local government approval, which will apply to Helena. And the transport licenses isn't required for just card holders or consumers. This is talking about bulk transport. This block of text up on your screen now refers to combined use marijuana licensees. These are for the 8 licenses that will be given to tribal nations around Montana. I can go into this in more detail at a future date if you would like. So options for local regulation. So option 1, can anything be prohibited entirely? And the answer is no, because it has not already been taken to a vote. That window is closed. So our regulation should be providing a path to having these businesses in town. So option 2 is to use zoning or another ordinance like a business license to regulate time, place, manner, and or impacts of each category or categories of marijuana businesses. So this is like what we did, the city ended up doing for medical marijuana, where we created 2 new use categories for each license category. And then the third option is to use zoning or other ordinance to regulate each category or categories of marijuana businesses as an existing type of regulated business, i.e. Sort of including one of those categories as an existing use category that we already have in city code. All right, so I sort of zoomed through there. So the questions I would like to put forth to the Zoning Commission are really, what does the Zoning Commission need from city staff in order to consider the role zoning could play in marijuana regulation? And how do you foresee the public engagement process working for the Zoning Commission? And of course, I am here to answer any further questions.
Oh, Michael, could you tell us how many businesses were licensed before November 20?
I can, give me one moment. Sorry.
While we're waiting for them, does anybody have any general questions?
I have a couple going back to the previous screen.
Okay.
In terms of this discussion, I'm not sure how much it matters how many previous licensed facilities there are. So my question here is, oh, excuse me, that's not, Oh, yeah. Option 2 versus option 3. Option 2, as I understand it, is using existing zoning to regulate, and option 3 is creating specific zones. Am I reading that correctly?
You've got that reversed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay, so explain that.
Yeah, so option 2 is the creation of new use categories, and option 3 would be to attach one of these new categories to an existing use category.
Okay.
For instance, there's an existing medical marijuana use category, and that is, will still be a use in a new, that'll still be a category. So we already have that one.
So I guess my bigger question then is this, going back to your question, what do we need from staff? And I guess I'm wondering whether one thing we need from staff is a recommendation between these options as to what might be the best method for regulating and zoning these in Helena.
So maybe, Kim, I could start. Because there are new categories that the legislature came up with the bill, and I think that was on a previous slide, we would have to look to see how easily some of those fit in with regard to our existing uses. My sense that it might be a combination of both. The reason why I wanted Michael to kind of let us know how many existing medical marijuana, that gives us a good sense of where we're going to have recreational marijuana come January, and in what locations and what types of zone. So
there's currently 22 medical marijuana dispensaries around town. And I can get them on a map with their date for you tomorrow, if you don't mind us, just to follow up to this meeting.
And just to clarify, those are under the existing medical marijuana category, which is an allowed use in certain zones as opposed to a standalone zone, right?
Correct.
that is correct. And not all of our current dispensaries were licensed before November 2020.
Okay.
Do we have any idea how many of them are going to try and convert over to the dual? No idea.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it isn't 75%. Given, and Mark, the reason I say that, given conversations when they initially got their license with them individually, and some of them indicated that was one of the reasons they selected the location that they selected, and they did come to Helena. So because of that market.
Yeah, and
for that market.
I recall that as well. Are we facing a situation then where if we don't enact some change to zoning with either option 2 or 3 to kind of encapsulate recreational marijuana some way in zoning, what's kind of regulating where they can go?
Well, then if there's nothing that kind of regulates them, that's a good question. Some of those categories we may just, normally what we do when we are presented with something that we don't have a specific use category for, you find the closest thing to that category and base our interpretation on whether or not they're allowed by that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I remember that sort of had to happen with the first medical marijuana dispensary in town. At least one of them, if not more than that.
Yeah.
So currently we only have medical marijuana dispensary and medical marijuana grow operation. That doesn't that doesn't account for recreational grow operation, right? So we do have to, we're almost tasked with somehow either adapting those two definitions to account for recreational, which would be option 3, or create individual, probably very closely aligning to, but individual use categories, and that would be option 2 for recreational versions of not only the grow but the dispensary.
And there's also those other categories. Maybe Michael can go back to that
Sure.
slide that shows those other categories.
Right, because there's transportation and testing and all that stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I guess my question for those is, rather than creating a bunch of new uses, would it be possible for us to kind of group some of those based on their expected impacts?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
manufacturing that much different impact than cultivation? So in cultivation, we talked a lot about the odors.
Well, cultivation is just growing and the other one's manufacturing.
Right, I just mean are the impacts
Yeah.
much different?
Yeah, I think the difference, well, for example, the difference between the two of those is probably in the manufacturing is the odor and associated smell. But, and I guess that's kind of where we want to get the zoning commission, and we plan to, after the first of the year, to start into this community conversation. So, and that's one of the things that we could talk about as a group before we go out to the public is maybe a little bit whether, is a manufacturer, or a better example would be a transport facility, really different than any other warehouse transport facility? For example.
Right, and some of these, a transport facility or testing lab are going to have aspects of them that are already pretty heavily regulated. So a transport facility is going to have requirements, and a lab facility will both have requirements for like locked rooms and things like that.
If we were to say to city staff today, like where would a testing lab fit within an existing land use? Is there something that comes to mind?
Sorry.
I'm trying to think where some of the testing labs that we have right now. I believe we have an optics testing lab.
We also have anywhere we're really allowing anything medical as well would, I would consider more intensive than any kind of like lab diagnostics or medical testing would be generally a more intensive use than marijuana testing.
Michael, just a quick question. Is testing an integral part? I mean, I know it's an integral part of the big picture, but is it necessarily an integral part that would be involved in Helena? Like, is every community that's going to have marijuana going to have testing facilities, or is that something that can be done regionally?
I was going to say, I think that might be a good thing, maybe to bring in someone who has experience in the business to kind of help us better understand those categories.
Yeah, I would like that, because when I see testing, I'm like, well, what are they testing? How much of an impact is that really going to have to a neighborhood? Is it like the samples come in, they go out? Not everything goes through, I imagine. It's just samples, so it's kind of it can probably fit in a steel building, somewhere near Ace Hardware, or and no one would even know, right? I'm assuming. I mean, I'm not picking on that place individually, but I know there's like a geotechnical testing facility over there, and nobody even knows about it, right? It's just a kind of a building. So you know, is it that sort of kind of facility, or are there kind of, is there a lot more volume? Is there the smell generally associated with the odor that we do need to account for? That is a big concern. It certainly was when we talked about the medical side of this. And I would imagine it would be to anybody who's a neighbor to any of these facilities. Am I going to smell it? Yeah,
So-
I like the idea of bringing in someone who might know what happens at a facility like that.
Yeah. And generally they're taking a commercial product that's been manufactured somewhere, or just taking a strain of marijuana as a sample, and they're trying to, so that they can put on the packaging what the level of THC is in there. So that's their primary function, is to take a sample and come back with that number so that it can be put on the packaging and properly taxed and all that sort of stuff. That needs to be handled by an independent facility. It's not going to happen on site at the manufacturing facility.
So
But that won't necessarily be happening within the state of Montana, given the fact that marijuana licensing or legal legality is not universal across the country, right? So in other words, not like, probably with cigarettes and alcohol, they're getting tested somewhere out of Montana, I assume.
So so marijuana is not allowed to leave the state of Montana under HB 701. So this is not an interstate thing. So any testing that is done for something that is cultivated and manufactured in Montana is going to happen in Montana.
And is there already a testing industry for the medical marijuana business?
I would assume so, but that's why I think it'd be good to get somebody in who's familiar with the industry.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
I think another thing, I think, Rebecca, you mentioned it. I know we're kind of out of time for the work session portion of it. But one thing I could see being handy as well is you guys maybe giving us some sort of kind of alignment, like the transportation facility closely aligns with this in our current code, and we might be able to kind of use that and gauge, okay, we probably want to set it up a little bit like this other zone. If we're creating a new zoning designation for it, it might help us kind of talk about it with alignment to current zoning, which that would help me anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess I would be interested in having a conversation with the zoning commissioners about, it sounds to me as though a grow operation or a cultivation is probably fairly similar, whether it's medical or recreational. So looking at our existing definition of medical marijuana grow operation, can we just amend that without having to adopt a new use? And then I think the conversation around the dispensing portion is really a conversation about zoning. Are there going to be different impacts from a medical dispensary than there would be from a recreational dispensary? And I would be hard pressed to point those differences out, but I think that's a conversation that the zoning commission should have, whether our existing definition could just be reused, removing the medical part.
Yeah, that's a good point, Rebecca. We might be taking from option 2 and option 3 in order to make this work.
Yeah.
Cultivation and dispensing, recreational or medicinal, sort of might align pretty well. So
I wanted to kind of butt in here real quick. Sorry, I've been quiet. I'm operating off my cell phone today because I left my charger in the wrong location. I know for me, I was kind of interested in if we could get some information from another city, even in another state, that has dealt with the dispensing piece for recreational, because it's not like it's reinventing the wheel these days. And if they have, even if there's somebody you've maybe spoken to before in another city elsewhere that has this sort of thing coming up that they might have some things for us to consider as we look into the recreational dispensing versus the medical. That was something.
Sounds good.
And just to clarify, so we're looking at maybe bringing in an industry expert and also an expert from another municipality or somebody who has done this transition.
Or we can all take it upon us to look at other ordinances and summarize those.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be someone presenting to us, but even if someone with the city wants to have a conversation with someone else at another city or something like that, there's some form of information.
Okay, great.
Sounds good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What ultimately is the timeline we're probably going to expect? I mean, I seem to recall we had to go through hearings and readings,
Yeah.
and a lot of other stuff. I assume it's the same instance.
Yeah, I think, first of all, the ones who are licensed as of November 2020 will get to go in, but we would like to have some regulations in prior to that 2023 deadline. So we're all set and ready to go. So
just so I'm clear, would those folks who are licensed prior to November 2020 come January 1st, they'll be able to apply?
mhm.
And then will they are given a license for recreational, will they be operating at their existing locations under medical dispensing? Okay.
Yep. If they're properly licensed, yeah. So,
Okay.
And we don't have any grow operations in the city limits, right?
no,
Okay.
there may be some out in the county, but we don't have any in the city.
Thank you.
Thanks for the info.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is 6:03. And I know we have a zoning commission hearing that should be starting here shortly. Looks like we have a handful of folks on the phone, probably for that hearing. So I just want to pause for a second. The zoning commission just wrapped up a work session. So if you have joined us, thank you for coming to the zoning commission hearing tonight. Welcome. We appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us. This is the City of Helena Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, November 9th. My name is Rebecca Harbidge. I'm the chair of the Zoning Commission. And we also have Commissioners Kim Wilson, Mark Ophis, and Alyssa Sorensen with us tonight. I think that's it. I'm just looking at the list of attendees. And we have several members of city staff as well. If you are interested in commenting on any of the items on the hearings tonight, we will get to those as we walk through the agenda. I think because this is a virtual meeting, I'd like to just do a round of introductions so we know who is on the phone. So if we could just start with the other zoning commissioners, if you don't mind turning on your cameras just to say hi if you have a camera and are able to do that. And Kim, can we start with you?
Sure. I'm Kim Wilson. I'm one of the members of the Zoning Commission.
And Mark.
I'm Mark Ophis, Zoning Commission.
Alyssa.
Alyssa Sorensen, Zoning Commission. Sorry for no camera.
All right. Do we have anyone else who does not have their name typed out who's a zoning commissioner?
So Nicole Anderson emailed me yesterday to let me know she would be unavailable tonight.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, April. All right, let's go to city staff. Sharon, do you mind starting?
This is Sharon Haugen. I'm Community Development Director. Thank you.
Ellie, since you turned your camera on.
I'm Ellie Ray. I'm a planner in the City of Community Development Department.
Michael.
Hi, Michael Alvarez. I'm a planner with the City Community Development Office.
April.
I am April Sparks. I am the administrative assistant for the Community Development Department.
Do we have any other city staff on the line? Doesn't look like it. All right. Let's see, if you are joining us and you are not a member of the Zoning Commission or city staff, would you please introduce yourself?
Nick Four with Cross Development. I'm here to discuss on the Caliber collision.
Great, thank you. So a few other people on the phone. Just going to call on you if you don't mind taking yourself off mute and just saying who you are so folks know who's on the line. I see a Dennis Clancy. All right, I'm also seeing David Pellin. See someone who it is just listed as Galaxy A12. If you don't mind introducing yourself for us, that would be great. Just so folks know, you have been automatically put on mute when you join. So before introducing yourself, you'll have to unmute. All right, and oh, go ahead.
This is Julie Moldenhauer.
Great, welcome. Thanks for joining.
You bet.
And Nolan Lister.
Hi, I'm Nolan Lister. I'm a reporter with the Independent Record. I was mainly just sitting in on the recreational pot presentation.
Great, thanks. Thanks for being here. Right, anyone else would like to introduce themselves? All right, no one is chomping at the bit to do that, so we're going to move on. Good evening. This is the Zoning Commission meeting. As I said, for those who haven't joined us in the past, the Zoning Commission is a 5-member board, and we do require that 3 of our commissioners are present in order to establish a quorum. Just for the record, we do have a quorum here tonight. These meetings are recorded, and we do take minutes, so just be aware of that as you give public comment tonight. We do follow an agenda, which if you are joining us via Zoom, you can see on the screen. We start with staff presentations for each of the hearings, which is a summary of the proposal and the staff report. The commission can then ask questions of staff to clarify any points. We then provide an opportunity for the applicant or applicant's representative to respond and add any additional information that may not have been covered that would be pertinent to our review. And then we do also have time on each of the items for other individuals or members of the public to speak on that proposal. We then discuss and take a vote on whether to recommend approval to the City Commission. When you do come forward to speak, we'll ask that you please state your name and address so that we can get that down in the minutes and in the recording for the record. And just since this is always difficult as a Zoom meeting, please just make sure you speak clearly when you do come up to talk. I think with that, we will proceed to item C on the agenda, public hearings, and we'll start with item 1.
Thank you, Chair Harvage. Can you see the PowerPoint? Wonderful. All right, we will just move right through this. Again, I'm Ellie Ray McLean in the City Community Development Department. Tonight you're being asked to consider a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow vehicle repair use in the general commercial B2 zoning district, the property that's legally described as lots 1 and 3 of the Ray Minor subdivision in the city of Helena, Montana. Just for context for all of you, this is a vicinity map of the lots in question. I do want to note with this, at the very top of the block, you see lot 1, and at the bottom in blue, you see lot 3. We did just recently receive a amended plat application, so that everybody is aware, just the southeast portion of lot 1 at the top is actually part of this proposal once the amended plat is filed. So there will not actually be any adjacency to Queen Anne Street with this project. But this is just north of Comfort Suites. It's to the west of the city's wastewater treatment facility, and it is to the east of Super One, generally speaking. The proposal, again, it's for a CUP for a vehicle repair use in the B2 district. The applicant is looking to construct a roughly 16,100 square foot collision repair center on the two parcels, lots 1 and 3. It's a roughly, currently with the 2 lots of platted 1.5-ish acres. And it is a requirement of the B2 district that CUPs be obtained for any vehicle repair uses. The B2 district intent statement states that it is provided for compatible residential uses and a broad range of commercial and service uses that serve large areas of the city and that are normally required to sustain a community. And the city code also defines the vehicle repair use as a place for maintenance, service, and repair of vehicles, including tires, transmissions, and brakes, bodywork and painting, upholstery, engine repair, and overhaul. Definitely not overall. Here are some site photos of the properties in the vicinity and the actual lot itself. So the first picture you see on the left-hand side of the slide is looking north along the property. So you can see that it is currently undeveloped. And to the immediate west, there is the new Heidi's Casino that was constructed in the past couple of years. This is looking to the east toward the wastewater treatment facility. I should note that is a different zoning district. That's public lands and institutions, since it's a municipal infrastructure property. And to the south is the Comfort Suites, which is also B2, and that is also showing on the top left-hand side, Ray Avenue, which is where the current proposed CUP use would actually gain its access. In evaluating a conditional use permit, there are certain criteria that have to be assessed. The city commission ultimately would have to find that based on the facts, circumstances, and evidence of record that the following standards are met, that the CUP will not significantly increase risk to public health, safety, or general welfare, nor will it significantly reduce or impair peaceful use of existing property improvements in the vicinity and the zoning district in which it is located. Aligned with this, there are 12 factors that also have to be assessed with the CUP, in noting the impacts on abutting properties in the neighborhood, the first of which is the location, character, and natural features of the subject property, the type and size of the proposed structure and improvements, and the relative location on the subject property, historical uses, established use patterns, and recent changes to trends in the neighborhood, conformity with the proposed use with the neighborhood plan, if there's one adopted, which in this instance there is not, current and proposed pedestrian, vehicular, and bike traffic, including ingress and egress, circulation, and parking, whether the use is consistent with the city's climate change action plan, whether it meets with the dimensional standard requirements for the district without the need for a variance, the present application does, hours of operation, noise, glare, odor, and the express public opinion related to the factors identified above. So in looking at those criteria and factors, it's worth noting that the overall character of the B2 district in this area is a blend of commercial uses. There is, of course, the municipal infrastructure to the east of North Washington Street, and to along Queen Anne's, on the west side of Queen Anne's, is going to be the newly constructed multifamily housing that's going in. This area is generally designated as commercial in the 2019 growth policy, and as such, it's intended for areas that are comprised predominantly of uses involving the transaction of goods or services such as retail, office, restaurants, entertainment, and so forth, potentially with limited single-family homes and more likely with higher density residential uses as is being seen in the area. All buildings and uses located within the city must comply with our adopted codes, including building, fire, and zoning codes. As mentioned, the proposal based on the site plan will comply with our dimensional standards for the B2 district, and presently also the parking requirements, I believe. The property is currently served by the Helena Police and Fire Departments and will continue to be served by them. The property, or rather the information provided in the application contained a consultant trip generation analysis, which was done in consult with other collision repair center owners. And the findings of that show that they are expecting to only generate 134 vehicle trips per day with this proposal, which is below the 200 vehicle trip per day threshold that would necessitate a traffic impact study. As such, it's not anticipated that this collision repair center will have major impact on the local street network. Vehicular and bike travel is going to continue to be accommodated in the right of way. It's worth noting with this proposal, as there are no sidewalks currently installed adjacent to the property, they will be required for installation with procurement of building permits with the development. It is hoped that the sidewalk improvements will help to allow for more connectivity throughout this whole area, particularly for residents nearby and to the other commercial uses. So as such, it is hoped that this new sidewalk will help reduce the carbon dioxide emissions in the area in alignment with the city's climate change action plan. I noted before that the access for this property will be located off of Ray Avenue using an existing curb cut that Heidi's Casino also utilizes. I want to mention this because the rights of way to the north and east of this property, North Washington and Frontage Drive, are actually MDT rights of way. So they're not going to be seeking any permits through the state in order to gain access off of those roads. The development as well, in their application, they noted that the repair activities will all take place within the confines of the repair center building, and the vehicle storage area is intended to be fully screened in order to help mitigate noise, glare, and odor. The hours of operation that are planned for the business would be 8 to roughly 5 or 6 p.m., only Monday through Friday, so no evening hours and no weekend hours, which is generally consistent with neighboring commercial uses. With respect to public notice and comments, this hearing this evening was legally noticed in the Helena Independent Record on October 24th. Similarly, we did also mail neighbor notices that were received roughly around that same time by the 23rd for people within the community. As of today, staff have received only 2 comments on this proposal. Both came from 2 of our sitting Helena Citizens Council District 6 representatives. The first was from Steve Allen, who generally wanted to comment in support of the proposed CUP, seeing it as a good fit for the district. We also heard from Representative Jim Whaley, who generally spoke to the need for appropriate screening around the property and also requested that the building appearance be compatible with those in the area. We do not have any defined standards for that area, so I just wanted to note that with respect to his comment. And the recommendation before you tonight is to move to recommend approval of a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow vehicle repair use in the general commercial B2 zoning district for property legally described as lots 1 and 3 of the Ray Minor subdivision in the city of Helena, Montana. If approved, the recommended conditions are: 1, that screening in the form of fencing with no opacity and landscaping shall be placed along the perimeter of the internal storage parking area to provide a buffer from light and glare trespass. 2, that all vehicle repair activities will be conducted in the confines of the repair building to mitigate odor and noise impacts. And 3, that all conditions must be met within 1 year of CUP approval as per section 1139 of the Helena City Code. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have of me. Just to reiterate, so he's already introduced himself. Nick Four from Cross Development, the applicant for this proposal, is with us tonight to answer any more specific questions that you may have of him. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. Do the commissioners have any questions for the city staff? Yes.
So, Ellie, just a quick question on the kind of screening concept and looking at that map. Do I understand correctly that new residential apartment buildings are to the west along that, whatever those streets are to the west there off of Queen Anne?
Yeah, Chair Harbage and Commissioner Wilson, if you can see on this vicinity map that's on the screen right now, there is a pinkish red dot and a bunch of orange dots that are immediately to the west of Queen Anne Street. Those are the approximate locations of the new address points for those new multifamily units that are going in.
Okay, and then the follow-up question is, what is on the properties kind of between Queen Anne Street and this development? Is there some kind of natural buffer there?
So lot 2, which is immediately to the west, it's north of Ray and east of Queen Anne, and immediately west of where they're proposing this new CUP use. That is where Heidi's Casino currently is.
Okay, all right.
I do have one question based on the recommended conditional use or conditions for use. The screening in particular is recommended along the perimeter of internal storage parking area. Is, if I'm reading this correct, that's essentially the entirety of the southwest and north edges of the applicant's plan. Is that correct? Basically everything but Washington Street.
So Chair Harbage and Commissioner Opitz, it is roughly on the site plan, which you have to flip when viewing it, which you probably did. It is, yes, the northeast corner, the northern corner, and then the western portion of the property. They're going, and just the little access area that's coming off of where people enter in by their parking area. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I was reading the, I guess that's customer parking on the south side.
Yeah.
The right side of the sheet, I guess. Okay.
That's correct. Immediately north of Ray Avenue is where the access and parking will be provided for the public. And then, yes, it's so the fence line will run along just a portion of the North Washington Street side, and then around the interior portion of the development. Or not the interior portion of the development, the perimeter of the area that they're developing with the storage parking.
Just to clarify, along the west, right, which would be between this development and the potential future multifamily on the other side of Queen Anne.
Chair Harbage, actually, there's no immediate adjacency to that, but yes, it would be on the western side. But Heidi's Casino is between this proposed site and and the multifamily and Super One lots.
Mm-hmm.
I have another kind of clarifying question. If we are to consider buffering around kind of the limits of development as part of the conditional use, that, I guess if my recollection serves me, that varies a little bit from kind of how we define buffering being from property line, generally throughout zoning. Is that potentially an issue? Like if the applicant, if the owner opted to expand their vehicle storage area further to the west, or to the northwest, which I think I'm reading this right, is still their property, to do so out to at least a portion of it. Maybe I'm missing something there, but we would probably want to consider that in some way, shape, or form, at least the way we phrase the conditional use there, right?
Sure. Chair Harbage and Commissioner Opitz, my understanding based on what I know of the amended plot that has been submitted recently is that they're actually going to be taking up basically the bulk of what's going to be created as what will be Lot 3A at that point in time. So I don't think that they'll actually have room to expand operations because that land, they're only taking the southeast portion again of that Lot 1 at the top of the block. And I think that they're going to basically fill it out with what they have presented in the site plan. But I would defer to Nick 4 to confirm that my understanding is correct.
Before we do that, are there other questions for staff, and then we'll let the applicant's representative. All right. I think with that, we will go to the next part of this presentation, which is an opportunity for the applicant or applicant's representative to speak and address any clarifying points. So Nick, sounds like there's a question on the table for you.
Yep, thanks. This is Nick 4 with Cross Development, 9461 Kenwood Road, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45244. Ellie, thanks a lot for that. Great job on the explanation on the project. Just to clarify on that last question, yes, that's accurate. We are purchasing 1.54 acres, and we're going to be developing up on all of that land. And as it was touched base on a little bit, our prototypical fence starts at the southwest corner of our building and wraps all the way around up to the north, and then back down to the northeast corner of the building. And there's a gate there that is open during all business hours. As far as anything else, I think Ellie touched base on everything. Project specific, I can just give you guys a little bit more background on the Caliber collision. Caliber is, one of the largest auto repair facilities in the country. This is going to be one of the first developments in the Helena area. A typical store size like this is going to bring, roughly 15 to 20 employees. As Ellie mentioned, it's typical standard business hours, usually 8 to 6, Monday through Friday. This size site, is bringing anywhere from roughly 5 to 10 customers per day. That includes 2 to 3 drop-offs, 2 to 3 pickups, and 2 to 3 estimates. As far as the type of work that's being completed, it's all minor in nature. It's more of remove and replace business these type days. Days of banging out dents is largely over. All the work is confined within closed doors. It's heated and air conditioned, so all the doors are shut at all times. That mitigates any noise from going outside the building. There are paint booths inside the building that all the painting is done within. The paint booths are self-contained with state-of-the-art exhaust systems. And again, that helps with any noise or odors with leaving the building. I think that pretty much covers, everything from the operational side. I'm open to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I do have one, I guess. I was wondering, Mr. Fuller, if you could, I guess, briefly describe for us, kind of generally at a facility like this, how many wrecked vehicles or damaged vehicles are generally stored outside on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so good question. Typically we've got anywhere from 50 plus parks behind the gate. 20 of those stalls are usually taken up by employees. That leaves you roughly 30 plus stalls left, and there are 2 to 3, 4 pickups a day. So 3 or 4 cars for that. So I'd say about maybe 25, 30 that are waiting to be worked on, and probably a dozen plus in the shop at a time. Again, it's just mostly minor repair. Most of these cars are driving themselves to the shop. You will have some being towed here and there, but more often than not, it's just cars with minor repairs. They're driving themselves to the site to get estimates, and then drive themselves to the site to get their car work done.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the commission for the applicant?
Not for me. Thanks.
Thank you.
None for me either. Thank you.
I think with that, we'll move along on the agenda and we'll open up the public portion of the hearing. If there are any members of the public who are here to speak on this proposal, please introduce yourself, state your name and address before you speak. Going once. Just a reminder that folks would have to take themselves off of mute in order to speak. Going twice. All right, not hearing anyone speaking up on public comment. I think I'll go ahead and close the public comment period of this hearing. And then are there any final questions or considerations from the commission? Not, I would invite the commissioner to make a motion.
Well, I'll go ahead and move to approve a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow a vehicle repair use in general commercial B2 zoning district for property legally described in lots 1 and 3 of Ray Manor subdivision in the city of Helena, Montana, with the recommended conditions 1, 2, and 3 provided in the packet. Do I need to read those aloud?
I don't think so. And just to clarify, your motion is to recommend approval.
Yes, to recommend approval. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion from the commission?
I would like to discuss a little bit the concept of the buffering and fencing. I think that is probably maybe the biggest concern for the neighborhood is, what are they looking at from day to day. I was also I was gonna say something about noise, but it sounds like this facility in particular operates closed door, which should really kind of help that. So, and my only major concern is the appearance of the area for the neighborhood. I think an opaque fence, a cedar fence or however it's described, with landscaping is probably a good way to mitigate that. I mean, it's fairly common, adjacent to residential, even though this wouldn't be directly adjacent to a residential zone. But I think it's the right thing to do with the conditional use permit that we are recommending. As far as the height, I believe somebody, what was his name, recommended like a tall one, right? Like 10 feet or something like that. That gets into being a pretty substantial fence. Oh no, it was 10 feet away from the property. That's what it was. Other than that, I feel like having a fence with vegetation, also included landscaping outside the fence in the buffer, is the right thing to include in this.
I would echo. I think the fencing screening requirement as part of the conditions is appropriate. My biggest concern in reading this application was just the residential development that's going to be happening to the, not, as Mark said, not directly west of this property, but in that area. I was concerned about the light, glare, odor, and potentially noise. The details that were provided in the staff packet on that, and just recognizing also the location and the I guess the character of the existing development in that area. There is already quite a bit of development that has some glare, potentially odor coming from the wastewater treatment plant. There's already quite a lot of that impact in the area. And I think that the addition of the screening and also especially the landscaping on the outside of the screening to improve the visuals will be really helpful at this property. It also is it's a location that, in my mind, looking at the map, seems to make a lot of sense for this type of development. I mean, it's got multiple significant roadways nearby. It looks like there's even a roundabout right there, so I don't have a big concern about the traffic coming in and out.
So I share the concerns or the support for the screening and the landscaping. I mean, this is a kind of an odd little neighborhood, if you will, that's got like one of everything, but not a lot of anything. So I'm assuming that a lot of that land to the north is likely, or more likely than not, to be developed as residential in the future. But the fact is right now the little limited residential there is kind of an island in a hodgepodge of commercial uses. And, so you've got the motel, you've got a casino, which is actually closer to the residential stuff. You got a huge grocery store and now this, and, I think it's a perfectly fine location for this. I think as development moves north, I'm guessing the city's going to want to have some kind of tapering back of the commercial development as we get north and into more residential.
I would again follow what everyone else has said here. I think that it makes sense. I think the screening would address the visual component, and it's as good a spot as anywhere else to have this type of activity going on.
Thanks all. And since it hasn't been said, I would also just, reflect on the fact that this is bringing employment to the city of Helena. I think that's something that we definitely need. So appreciate that this business is happy to come and locate in Helena, Montana. And I think with that, we will vote on the motion. So we have a motion on the table to recommend approval of this resolution granting a conditional use permit with the 3 conditions as listed in the staff packet. All those in favor of that, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, that has passed unanimously. Thank you all. And it looks like the city commission hearing list is scheduled for December 6th at 6 p.m. Is that still correct, city folks?
Chair Harwood, yes, it is.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thanks, Nick, for being here to present additional details to us. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Right. That we'll move on to item 2 under public hearings tonight. And this is considering an ordinance amending the official zoning map and looking at sorry, I don't have that in front of me now. I was reading off your slide there, April, sorry. So it's a proposed rezone from the commercial light manufacturing district to the R4RO district in the Woodlawn Dunbar neighborhood. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Michael.
Thanks. Yes. So this is a proposed rezone from CLM to RO in the Woodlawn Dunbar neighborhood. I am Michael Alvarez. I am a city planner with the Community Development Department. And there we go. So there are 7 properties. They're hashed in yellow and orange. They are currently zoned CLM. The city is proposing, and the city is the applicant on this. The city is proposing to change the zoning in that area to RO to better match the residential quality of the current use. So a little background on this. On August 30th, 2021, there was an applicant who applied to rezone from CLM to RO the property at 109 Willow Avenue. After discussing the application with city staff, the applicant sought support from adjoining neighbors for a larger zone change. City staff held a neighborhood meeting at the county fairgrounds seeking input from the greater neighborhood. The city then submitted an application to change the zoning of 7 properties in the Woodlawn Dunbar neighborhood from CLM to RO. And a history of zoning in that neighborhood. The Woodlawn Dunbar neighborhood was annexed in 2009 and therefore went through a pre-zone zoning process. At that time, a zone change was sought for Woodland Park Block 5, lots 8 through 17, and that's on the north side of the properties in this proposal. And that was for a change from CLM to RO. That was in 2010, and part of the reason that was denied was because of the recency of the pre-zone and zoning in the area. There was also neighborhood opposition. So those properties resubmitted and had their zoning changed from CLM to RO 2 years later. So there was a staff review conducted, and that was conducted pursuant to Montana MCA section 76.2304(1)A. which states that zoning regulations must be made in accordance with a growth policy, and also by criteria pursuant to Montana MCA section 76.2.304 1B and 2A through E. So 2A through E of Montana MCA section 76.2.304 states that in the adoption of zoning regulations, the municipal body shall consider a reasonable provision of adequate light and air, the effect on motorized and non-motorized transportation system, promotion of compatible urban growth, the character of the district and its peculiar suitability for particular uses, and conserving the value of buildings and encouraging the most appropriate use of land throughout the jurisdictional area. The growth policy area designation. So in the 2019 Helena growth policy land use chapter and future land use map identifies that neighborhood in the proposed rezone area as mixed use. So properties to the east of the Woodlawn Dunbar area are similarly designated as mixed use. The county fairgrounds are to the west and are designated as open space. And the growth policy also includes several goals and objectives that are applicable to the proposed zone change. Here's the future land use map. As you can see, Woodlawn Dunbar is an area designated as mixed use. And I do want to note the urban area to the south is actually directly to the south neighborhood is a school. And here's an overview photograph of the area to give you sort of an idea. There's the Charles Van Hook wetland is up in the north, in the northwest corner. There's a large amount of commercial activity down on West Custer and on the along Mitchell Avenue and on Dunbar Avenue. Growth policy objectives that this proposal speaks to. Objective 12 is to promote and maintain development of a diverse housing stock, which is helping to minimize depletion of natural resources, reduce land consumption and demands on the physical environment, provide housing for all residents, optimize infrastructure use, and prepare Helena to meet emerging needs. Objective 77, which is to apply or revise zoning designations with careful consideration of factors including the future land use mapping, compatibility with surrounding land uses, infrastructure and service plans, development of vacant and underutilized buildings, existing and future traffic patterns, goals and objectives of the growth policy, related master plan and or facility plans. And objective 78, which is to encourage infill development on vacant underutilized land within the city, directing growth to areas currently served by or in close proximity to existing infrastructure, and that harmonizes with the character of the existing neighborhoods. In speaking to this particular area, 6 of the 7 properties are currently single dwelling units, and the 7th property is vacant land. So the Woodlawn Dunbar neighborhood has a mix of commercial and residential uses within it, and the zoning reflects that. The neighborhood has 3 zoning types: commercial light manufacturing, general commercial B2, and residential office. Of interest is the change from CLM to RO. And this would be a change as stated in Helena City Code from a district that provides the community's commercial and light manufacturing needs. These uses generally need access to the city's transportation amenities and should be located to reduce adverse impacts upon residential neighborhoods in the city. 2 R4 RO residential office districts provide for a compatible mix of higher density residential development with professional and business offices and associated service uses. As I said, present land use, 6 of the 7 properties are being used as single dwelling units, and that is currently non-conforming, a non-conforming use in the CLM district, and that 7th property is a vacant lot. The adjacent land use to the north is single and multi-unit dwellings. To the east is commercial and residential. To the south are those commercial uses I mentioned before in the aerial photography, and the west is commercial and residential uses. The proposal to rezone from a CLM to RO district will maintain the mixed-use zoning designation that the city has established for the Woodlawn Dunbar neighborhood. This change in zoning has the intent of better matching the zoning in the neighborhood to the existing uses. In consideration of the analysis above, the proposed zoning change is compatible with the identified goals, objectives, and policies of the growth policy. So a summary of public comments received, and I need to make an addendum here. On my public notification, I was informed at the start of this meeting that I had, on my neighbor notification, have sent out the incorrect Zoom information. There are a number of members from the public that have gotten in here, but that is obviously a heinous overstep of mine, or misstep of mine. That being said, 14 public comments were received representing 10 households in the neighborhood and one concerned party living outside of the neighborhood. Comments were collected through the action of a subject property owner via survey at the neighborhood meeting and through discussions with city staff. 8 of the 14 comments received expressed support, 5 of 14 expressed no concern or issue with the change, and 1 of the 14 is in opposition. There was concern expressed in the neighborhood meeting, also of note about residential multifamily being allowed. Staff is recommending approval of an ordinance amending the official zoning map for the city of Helena for a zone change from CLM commercial light manufacturing to RO residential office for properties legally described as lots 33 through 40 of block 5, lots 6 through 12A, 13A to 15 of block 4, lots 33 to 40 of block 4 of the Woodlawn Park Addition, section 13, township 10 north, range 4 west, according to the official map and plat on file and of record in the office of the clerk and recorder of Lewis and Clark County, Montana. Questions for staff?
Great. Thank you, Michael.
I've
Any
got a
questions for staff?
question.
Yep, go ahead.
Michael, just looking at the map, what are the commercial uses along Mitchell Avenue to the west of these parcels?
It's primarily automotive related, and at that property at 3209 Mitchell Avenue, and on the property on the northeast corner of Dunbar Avenue. Those are automotive repair facilities. I know I have Michael Root on the line, who can speak more specifically to the business at 3209 Mitchell Avenue if he wants to. He's the business owner there. And then on Willow Avenue, currently on that southwest corner, currently that space is being rented by somebody who is keeping basically their contractor equipment there until that property owner wants to do a commercial development there of some type. On the northeast corner of Willow Avenue is a single family home.
Even though that's in the commercial zone?
Yeah, on the southwest corner, there's some mini storage units. That next property to the south, to the west. I'm sorry, yeah, to the west on Willow Avenue is another single family home. And actually, 3209 Mitchell Avenue is a business, but also has a single dwelling unit on it. So it's a neighborhood. This neighborhood is heavily. It's a lot of single dwelling units, but it's also a lot of businesses sort of mixed in there because of originally in the annexation process, because of a number of the businesses were like, there's that mini storage business and there's automotive businesses. They needed that CLM designation in order for the businesses to be non-conforming. Yeah, sorry.
No, thanks. That's what I need.
You can talk at any time.
If you want to hold on just a minute, I think we'll finish up with commissioner questions for staff, and then we'll just circle back around after that to questions or clarification from folks in the neighborhood. Does that work? Thanks. Thanks for being here. We'll be there in just a second. I do have a question for Michael. Michael Alvarez, sorry. If you mentioned that there was neighborhood opposition in 2010. Could you characterize what the opposition was at that time?
Yeah, so when the neighborhood was annexed, there was a lot of conversations with the neighborhood about how they wanted to come into the city. I would say that the opposition was primarily that there was a hope that that section of the neighborhood would lean more and trend more towards commercial when it was annexed over time. The commissioner at the time gave 3 reasons. I can only recall 2. I apologize. One was the neighborhood opposition that wanted to keep it commercial. And the other was, the city had just voted on it and didn't want to be revisiting it at that time.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the commission for city staff?
Can I ask just a point of order, I guess, to Rebecca and or Sharon? Is the notice issue such that this is going to have to be re-noticed and reheard before we get into public comments?
I would guess so.
Do we know that?
Michael, maybe you could better describe. The advertisement in the paper was posted. That speak to the full, complete neighborhood notification process, and then I'll address the question.
Yeah. So my neighborhood notice letter, which was sent out to adjacent property owners, and is also going to be the copy that is posted on the sign in the neighborhood, that has the wrong Zoom link on it. And I have now realized that during this meeting, so I will just need a moment to audit whether or not it is correct in the Helena IR or not.
So to answer your question,
Sorry.
go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, just to quickly review other public comment and other means. My email, phone number, all of that information is correct. There was a neighborhood meeting, and for those people at the neighborhood meeting who provided me an email address, they were emailed the correct Zoom information, which is why we have members of the public here. That and calling me and getting the correct information verbally.
Commissioner Wilson, so I'm struggling because it appears that half the people were notified with the correct Zoom address and the other half weren't, is kind of what I am hearing. So normally when we have incorrect notification sent, remind me, what was the independent record? Was that the right information or not?
Sharon, I just checked the legal ad we sent to the independent record, and the Zoom information in that was correct.
So we did have that notification. It's just the notification to the people within 150 feet that was incorrect. And also the posting that was incorrect. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct.
And to your knowledge, Michael, of the folks who received notice within 150 feet, are they present?
Yes, I have adjacent property owners. I also have the primary member of the opposition, the sole opposition member that has expressed opposition to me is here.
So I think it would be okay to go ahead and have the hearing. We did notify them through the independent record. They will be re-notified. All these people are going to be re-notified of the city commission meeting with a proper address. I think it would be okay to proceed. If I find myself in error after talking to the city attorney, he's not available this evening. We will bring this back next month. But that, since part of the reason I say this, we have so many people on the line already. So I would like to hear from them, or I think the zoning commission could hear from them. Does that seem reasonable to the zoning commission members?
I do want to respect everyone's time who did come out tonight to comment. What do the other commissioners feel?
Part of me feels, well, I'm actually curious whether or not we should vote on this. I'd certainly welcome the comment and listen to all the members of public here. But I do wonder if we should table it and table the vote. I'm not saying that's what I'm recommending or anything. That's not my opinion. I'm just curious whether or not we should go down that road. I do know, and I hope the members of public here do as well, but if they don't, this is not the final say. We are not a binding commission. This will have to go to the city commission. We only recommend approval, as Commissioner Harvage pointed out to me in the last item. So this is not the last time that this can be heard and comment can be given. I guess a question I do have then, Sharon, is if you end up talking to Thomas about this snafu, and it turns out we had voted on it, does it just negate it altogether and we just revisit this, or how does that work?
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, I think your suggestion when you started your comments is probably the most appropriate this time, is that maybe we could hear the public in presence. We table this until next month. And then if we have to re-notify, we'll know that in the interim between now and next month. And we'll have that properly noticed. And also the minutes and the comments from this hearing will be carried forward to that hearing and to that tabling. So if you table to a date certain, that might be the most appropriate thing at this time in retrospect.
I think that's a good resolution, kind of thinking about it as a lawyer, because you don't want to deprive the people who showed up tonight for their opportunity to speak to this topic, because they may not be available the next time it pops up. But I do think in terms of us having a vote and possibly re-noticing up and having additional public comment, I think it makes sense to table it. Would we need a formal motion to do that now or after the public comment?
Madam Chairman, Commissioner Wilson, I think the tabling motion after the public comment might be appropriate. And if those people chose to speak now, or they can come back in December, it's entirely up to them. But I agree with you. I do want to honor the fact that they may or may not be available. So.
Okay, thanks, Sharon.
And just to clarify, our next scheduled meeting is December 14th, right?
That is correct.
All right. Are there other questions for city staff?
Can I just make one more comment? And
Yes.
this to Michael Alvarez, as someone who's done the exact same thing with Zoom invitations, I am not being critical of you and making this suggestion.
Thank you.
All of us. Okay. If there are no more questions for city staff, I will move on and provide the applicant an opportunity to speak. That would be the applicant or applicant's representative. If you are interested, please state.
We're the
Go ahead.
city of Helena is the applicant.
Oh, Helena, right, you're right. Okay, so we've already heard from the applicant then, and at this point we can go on to the public portion of the hearing. And if there are members of the public who are here to speak on this, having heard the discussion, we probably will not be moving to a vote tonight, but we will be moving to table this for a vote at a future date. That will be a vote after the public discussion, just so you're aware. If you are here tonight and you'd like to speak, we would love to hear from you. Thank you for being here, and please just state your name and your address before you speak.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Andy.
My turn.
Yep.
This is Mike Root, 3209 Mitchell Avenue. Actually, I think this whole meeting should be void with all this wrong information that was sent out. How do you expect anybody to come across with any input if they can't get on the Zoom, or all the information's so wrong that all this old people down here, if half of them probably don't even have computers, the other half with the computers, they don't even know how to run Zoom. So these Zoom meetings aren't any good. You're going to have an in-person meeting if you want people input.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate you being here tonight to give us that perspective. Are there other members of the public who would like to speak on this proposal? Please state your name and address.
I don't know how to unmute.
You're unmuted. We can hear you.
Okay. I guess my only concern, or what I want to say, is the lots.
Sorry, would you state your name and address?
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. Julie Moldenhauer.
Great, thank you.
The lots that are listed that are up to be rezoned are all already residential lots. So I don't understand why there would be any opposition from anybody else in the area, since all of these lots are already residential. They're just zoned wrong. So I guess I'm kind of confused as to where the opposition's coming from. And
hello, Vogue. This is Lady.
I'm sorry, I just heard someone else interject. Julie, go ahead, and would everyone else please remain on mute?
okay, I guess all I'm saying is that the areas that we're talking about rezoning are already residential. They're zoned improperly. So why do we have to have input from everybody else about something that's already existing? They're there. I mean, these are residents on these lots that need to be rezoned.
Thank you. Thanks, Julie.
Yep.
Was there someone else who wanted to speak? Please state your name and address. And just as a reminder, most folks are on mute, so if you'd like to speak, you'll have to unmute yourself. If you're joining by Zoom, that can be found on the bottom left side of the screen, or press *6 if you're calling in. All right, I am not seeing anyone else coming off of mute, and I don't hear anyone else trying to comment. So with that, I'll close the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. And it sounded like we are interested in potentially having a motion. Yes, go ahead.
Excuse me.
Yep.
I do have one.
Okay.
Personally, I think the reason why you're trying to change this stuff is you got 2 more lots there, and you're going to strong arm me because I'll be the only CLM lot. And the city never has like CLM property to start with. I was told that by numerous people when we did CLM to start with. So I think that's why this RO stuff, and it's going to end up just strong arming me out. Is what's going to happen. And then when I built this shop and stuff, this is my retirement. And you start taking my CLM status away, I have nothing. You take my retirement away. That's why I'm in opposition.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. But we will record all of the comments tonight as part of the record, so that will be carried forward with this proposal. And I think before we have a motion, is there any discussion or further discussion between the commission members? And if not, I'd entertain a motion.
So my inclination would be to move to continue this till the November or December 14th meeting to and not have the board consider it tonight. But I think also, rather than waiting to see what the city attorney says, I guess my inclination would be to move to continue it so that there will be additional public comment with a new correct notice sent out, so that people in addition to Mr. Root and Ms. Moldenauer, if they choose to testify, can do so.
I believe that your motion is to continue this, essentially table it, correct?
Yes, that was a discussion point. It wasn't a formal motion yet, but that's what I'm leaning towards.
Okay, and I would likely support that, given the mistake made. I think public comment is very important in all of this process, even if some of it's really dry. It does affect people's livelihoods, like Mr. Root mentioned, in some way, shape, or form, and the public process is what we have. It's very important.
I would agree with that. I also just recognize that the process is also in place to allow the applicant, city, a chance to move forward and get this change done. So recognizing that we're trying to balance both, trying to balance the interest of the applicant in moving this forward, and also of the public to have a chance to comment and to understand how, and be provided with guidance on how to comment and be heard as part of the process. So I think that a motion to continue this or table a vote to the December 14th hearing seems appropriate in terms of balancing those interests.
If you're ready for a motion, I'm ready to make one.
Go ahead.
I'm ready to, or I'm moving to continue the hearing on this matter till December 14th. The public comment that's been heard tonight will be accepted in part of the record. The board will take additional public comment pursuant to corrected notice at the December 14th meeting. And the board will then on December 14th make its recommendation to the city commission.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. All right, that motion carries unanimously. This hearing will be continued at the Zoning Commission hearing on December 14th. At that time, we will hear additional public comment and we will make our recommendation to the City Commission afterward. Thank you very much to everyone who was able to join us tonight. I really appreciate hearing from you. A lot of different perspectives clearly in this neighborhood. So thank you very much. We appreciate your time. And we hope that we will hear from you again on the 14th.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And we will do a re-notification process.
Perfect.
So just want to let the board know that.
And Sharon, I guess I would request that as part of that re-notification, would it be possible to include some additional guidance on how folks may be able to join if they can't join on Zoom via computer, just emphasizing that they can also call into the meeting and providing some info on how that's possible, just to make it a little easier for everyone to be able to participate.
We sure will.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. With that, the hearing on agenda item C2 is closed and we'll move forward in the agenda. Item D is next steps. I'm not sure what we talk about under next steps. Is there anything under next steps?
No, Madam Chairman, normally next steps probably would be more for a work session.
Okay.
Or if there's other directions, so.
Perfect. We'll move on to item E, and that's public comment. Are there any members of the public here tonight who wish to make a general public comment to the Zoning Commission? Not seeing anyone or hearing anything. We'll move on, and it looks like our next meeting, as we've discussed, is scheduled for December 14th, 2021. Can we maybe just confirm that we have commissioners available?
I'll have to verify. I am heading out of town mid-December. I'm not sure my dates and my flights are solid yet.
Okay.
I'm here for sure.
I think I'm here. I can confirm shortly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I will be sending out an email in the
Thank
next
you,
week.
April. Okay, perfect. I want to make sure that since we've continued this to the 14th, hopefully we can get a quorum on the 14th, since it is a holiday month. All right. Well, with that, thanks everyone. I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting since we've reached the end of the agenda. Hope you all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.